Hello, everyone, and welcome back to WTF Menopause. I'm here with Dana Pharant, who is joining me to talk about the mindset of menopause. And we're going to hear some really interesting stuff, and I can't wait to dive in. Hello, Dana. Thank you for having us. Having us. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Tracy. I'm excited. This is fun.
Obviously, I'm still working through some of my bugs on my my script. So anyway, thank you for being here and being patient with me. So we're going to talk a little bit about menopause, but I'd like to hear first about your background and how you got into the work that you're doing, and we'll let you describe that for the audience.
Yes, it's an interesting journey. So I grew up in a cult. And with that, I, of course, experienced various types of abuse. And when I left that at 18, I went on this journey to untangle and unravel all of the imprinting that created in my system. And, went through all kinds of different therapies. And I ended up finding the most profound healing in the most unusual place. And that was the dungeon. So I know it's a bit unusual.
So let's describe what a dungeon is if someone may not have heard or understand what that actually means.
That is. Yes. So the dungeon is a space typically for the kink world, and kink is, a slang for BDSM. So bondage, submission, dominance, masochist. So, that world, think 50 Shades of Grey.
Right.
Only done. Done properly.
Right. Exactly.
That's Hollywood. That's the romance novel of the kink world. But when done well, the kink world, a good scene within the kink world, is actually about transformation. And you're taken through, and we call it a scene because it's not really about sex, even though it's very sexy, it's very sensual. It's actually about dropping in and surrendering to the moment, surrendering to the person that you're with, and allowing yourself to go on this journey. And I was able to find people who were really, really talented, and they were able to take me on a script where we reenacted the abuse that happened, but crafted an outcome that was going to change things. And yeah, it was profound. So it affected me on all levels because it's such a deep experience that at the end of it, what I found is that I actually came out of what I didn't realize at the time was a 25-year depression. And that lifted. And suddenly I was looking around and looking at this drizzly gray sky and thinking, wow, isn't that pretty? And then going, I've never had that thought. And so realizing that it was because this had shifted out of my body that the depression was able to lift, because I was able to feel again. It was safe to feel again. And that profound healing, combined with the fact that concurrent to all of this, I was a massage therapist. So the healing part of things is very ingrained for me. And I wanted to take other people on the experience. So I learned how to become a dominatrix. I learned all the tools of the trade and taking people on that similar journey where they get to have the outcome that changes them. It allows them to see that they're much more powerful than they ever thought they were. Now, I really wanted to take people on that journey, but I realized that a lot of the people who really needed that journey didn't want to go to the dungeon. So
it's kind of scary. It's
kind of
weird.
It's intense. It's intense. It's kind of the warrior path of this.
Right.
So what I did then was I started to look at, okay, how do I get the same results or just, almost as good through energy modalities, through energy psychology. And I started to, test and tweak and refine and find the ways to actually take people on this same journey, but without taking them through that intense situation. So that's, kind of the short story of the process of how I got to where I am. And so now my branding is the inner dominatrix, because I want people to step into the energy of the dominatrix, particularly when it comes to their business, but it applies in their life as well. All areas. When you step into that energy, that archetype, then how you show up and who you are in your life is is dynamically changed, and everything runs with a lot more ease.
That's really powerful. I wonder, I mean, one of the things that I have heard about BDSM and being in the dungeon and doing the transformation, that has been something I have heard fairly often, but I wonder how do you, I mean, it just seems like it would be, how do I say it? It would be really difficult to go through that transformation in a way that, I don't know. I mean, I guess some people, would it be as beneficial? No, that's not the question I was asking. I'm going to edit this part out because
start over.
No, I'm just like, it's right there and I can't think of it, but I'm like thinking of the transformation and how powerful that is, and how that process works, because you get to decide the end, which is really cool. How does that deciding the end, I guess, is the question. How does that translate into a business setting? How do you get to decide the end?
Well, it's actually, yeah. And it's a great question. So, the end is, crafted within a scene, but in a business setting, in a coaching setting, the end is a matter of, okay, how do you want to be? How do you want to be showing up? Where do you want your business to go? And we start with that. We say, okay, where do you want to be at the end of maybe 3 months, 6 months, or, a year or so? And then we work it backwards and say, okay, what needs to change in order for you to become that? And once we know what needs to change, then we can address those things in the sessions so that you end up becoming the person you need to become to have the outcome that you need.
Yeah. Okay. And I can see how we can translate that into the menopausal journey. So I'm going to kind of transfer a little bit or change gears a little bit, and just ask you if you're comfortable, if what your experience has been with menopause for you personally.
So I am just starting the change.
Yay, me too.
Yay! Power surges. So I'm very, very fortunate. But I think a lot of that does stem from the fact that I've done such deep, deep healing work. I've really been in my own journey and constantly, looking at my shit. We'll call it that, right? So when I'm, faced with something, a challenge or a difficult conversation, or, something comes up in business and it's not quite working, or my relationship needs to be dealt with, I'm facing it head on instead of stuffing it. And I honestly believe that dramatically changes my body, because I can feel the difference, right? If I have something that I'm not dealing with, then I end up feeling aches and pains and stiffness and, those kinds of symptoms. So for me, getting a little real and raw, my period is just kind of like tapering off. It is so light. It's crazy. It just gets lighter every month. Yeah, I know. I'm like, it's like, surprise. Oh, that's here. Okay, cool. And I really do attribute that to the inner work. And then combined with that, because I do the inner work, because I really have gotten to a place where it's like, it's not only safe to love me, it's like, it's good. It's good to love me. It's good to put me as a priority. So then I do the things that I need to do for my eating. I know sugar has to go. Every once in a while, I scientifically test to prove that that is really
that is true.
That is true. And yes, okay, that cookie, and now I'm sore for a week. Great. Okay, that's scientifically true. But if I keep the sugar out, if I cut way back on the carbs, and cut out all grains, I know that I have very few symptoms. And then the other big trigger for me is, unfortunately, the sad one, alcohol. I love my wine, but I noticed, like the other night, we were having dinner with some friends, and I of course partook of some wine, and the next day that morning started having some hot flashes. Now for me, it's a warm flush because I'm always freezing cold. So, but I noticed very distinctly that, these are the things that really work for me. A, clearing my stuff, to, being really healthy with my eating. Those two pieces are huge, huge for me.
And I think too, because you are so connected to your body and you can see what's going on, and your body well enough, you're able to make those connections. You're able to find what is working and what's not, because a lot of us have been trained over the years not to listen to our bodies.
Oh, huge.
I mean, society tells us not to pay attention to our bodies. We could go into all kinds of that area, but when you're tuned in, you can find that connection faster, and you're able to make those shifts and changes so that you do feel better, I think.
Yeah. And, the piece that you're saying about, we're conditioned to not pay attention. And I think a big part of it is that we're trying to shut off what we don't want to look at, right? My body has changed shape. I don't want to see that. I'm no longer the perfect shape. And, all
if
of
we
the
ever
internal
were.
judgment, right? It changes every 5 years. So you're never the perfect shape, right? That's crazy. But
right.
When we do that work where we stop judging ourselves, when we stop hating our body, and we can start loving our body exactly as it is without having to change it, exactly as it is, then that thing alone, loving your body, is going to make it easier to transition, because you're not fighting what's going on in your body.
Right. Exactly. I agree. I totally agree. So you answered like the next two of my questions. So we're going to go.
Look at that. I'm efficient.
It just went right through them. So what type of things would you suggest, or what steps, or what areas of focus do you suggest for women who might be struggling a little bit more with this change, either accepting the change or just dealing with all the stuff that goes on, because anxiety levels are up in this time of life, depression levels go up, not to mention just, the irritation levels with our family members and
yes.
Everybody in our lives, and I've had problems with just like all of a sudden being angry, like going from perfectly fine to pissed off mad as hell, and not really able to attribute it to like a trigger in my external. It's just I'm pissed, and then my whole family is like, what the heck is going on? Let's clear out. So what kind of mental or even emotional types of things can we incorporate to help alleviate some of these things? I mean, they may not go away 100%, but at least we can get started on moving that forward, go forward.
So I'm going to give all the listeners a resource. If you, and this may be coming down shortly, so do jump on this right away. If you go to innerdominatrix.com, so innerdominatrix.com, you can get a free digital copy of Become a Badass in Business. And while it's geared to business, the tools in there are equally applicable for your day-to-day. So there's lots of great tools in there around shifting the judgment of you, of others. And I would highly recommend digging into those tools, because, and it's a bit more involved than we want to get into in your short show, right? But that's why I was like, okay, let's get to that tool. The other energetic tool that I really love giving people, because it shifts things so dynamically, is to take your energy field and allow it to expand out. So energy follows intention. It is super, super easy. Everybody thinks, oh, I can't do it. Yes, you can. Don't overthink it. Just notice. And you take a deep breath and you just notice, like, oh, okay, what does it feel like to be as big as the room? What does it feel like to be as big as the city? What does it feel like to be as big as this country? And we just keep going. What does it feel like to be as big as this world and this solar system, the galaxy and the universe? Right? We keep going all the way out. And then what we just notice is that it feels like there's more space. It feels like you have more room, because energetically you're allowing yourself to take up more space. So here's the double piece of this. One, psychologically, you're allowing yourself to take up more space. Okay, as women, we generally do not allow ourselves to take up space. So you're giving yourself permission to change that programming. The other big thing is that when we pull in and contract, we often do this as a protective kind of thing. I'm going to pull in, I'm going to make myself really small, and then I'm going to be safe, which is bullshit. Doesn't work. Okay.
It doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel good. You're crammed in. You're like the genie in the bottle, great big infinite power in an itty bitty living space. It's my classic. I love Robin Williams, right? It was classic.
Yeah.
So, but that's the thing. It's like, okay, so I got to expand back out again. I do these analogies and I actually take myself.
Start to feel like it. Yeah.
Oh man. So when we allow ourselves to have lots of space, then all the other crap of everybody else's emotions, everybody else's judgments, all their thoughts, all their bullshit has nothing to stick to.
Mm.
Okay? Because like you're spacious like the wind. Mm-hmm. And you can't hang anything on the wind.
Right.
So this is the thing, is that you're actually safer from everybody else's bullshit when you're expanded out. So what I highly recommend to people is to put an alarm on your phone or anchor it to every time you go to the bathroom, because I love that for women, right? We go to the bathroom a lot.
All the time.
All the time, especially if you're drinking as much water as you really should be drinking. You're peeing a lot. This is a good thing.
Right.
So every time you go pee, you're going to expand out.
Mm.
And it's a nanosecond. You take a deep breath and it's like, oh, let yourself expand out. So that you train yourself to be expanded out all the time. And then you're not absorbing the bullshit of the world. Mm-hmm. And when you're not absorbing everybody else's BS, then you don't get triggered quite as easily. Okay? So it's not to say that it's not going to remove those mood swings. It's not going to remove them entirely where you don't just suddenly get pissed off. Mm-hmm. But it will dramatically reduce it because there's less to annoy you. Mm-hmm. And I really think this is one of the things with menopause is that we've gotten to an age where it's like, I'm just tired of dealing with you stupid people. And now I get to say something. Because there's all this power just rising up. And it's like, that's the voice, right? That anger is an energy. It's an energy that wants to be directed somewhere. Mm-hmm. So understanding where that energy wants to be directed to, because you have a power in you, that's a deeper underlying thing. But for now, expanding out so that you don't take on other people's bullshit allows you to actually have some freedom and feel more ease.
Yeah, for sure. And I totally love that we're able to, in this time of our lives, to just basically not deal with the bullshit. Or like, I'm just sorry, I just don't even want to deal with it. And I'm done. And that, I think, that could create some friction in our lives, because we're dealing with people who have known us for a long time, who have seen us in our patterns and our habits. And then all of a sudden things are different, and it's unsettling to them as it is to us sometimes, because we don't even realize it. We just know we're done with all the drama. We're done with the bullshit. We're done with everything. And we're just not even going to be quiet about it anymore. It's like our filter breaks, right? And
it does. Yeah. And if we do the deeper work where we're moving our judgments out, we can still have a bit of a filter, but it's not a filter where we're suppressing our voice. It's a filter that allows us to say things in the way that they can be heard.
Yeah.
And there's a difference.
Yeah.
Right. So, that is the bigger journey for now. Expand out, breathe, have lots of space, allow them to just be uncomfortable. Like, okay, it's okay that you're uncomfortable. It's okay.
It's not yours to take on.
Right. I'll be over here.
Cooling down.
Right. I'm going to roll in the snow now. I'll be back.
I'll come back when everything is better. So aside from expanding out, because I usually ask the guest, what are 3 small steps that we can take now? And I think you gave us a couple, going to get the download and then doing the expansion. So do you have one other small step that you think we could take to really drive us forward?
Yeah, I think the other big thing is to, give yourself permission to be uncomfortable. That's probably one of my things that I love from my time in the dungeon is that, being uncomfortable, being in a situation that makes you squirm is what moves you forward. It is what transforms. And I think embracing that and saying, well, what if I could enjoy it? And so that's the other thing, the other spin that I love from the dungeon is that, like, in there, it's about making pain something that is actually pleasurable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a lot of what we want to do in our lives, is that take all of these uncomfortable things, lean into them, embrace them, welcome them, and say, I wonder what the gift is here.
Yes, that's so perfect.
I wonder what the gift of menopause is.
And there's a lot of wondering, but I think that it's possible. And I do think that there are some really positive things that come out of menopause, aside from not getting, having to deal with the cycle every month. But I do think it's such a transformative time. We have a new opportunity to really focus in on ourselves. We have an opportunity to focus in on what we want to be when we grow up, or do, or, how we want to impact the world. What do we want to do to leave it in a place that's better than when we got here, right? So I just really love that we can look at it in that respect instead of just thinking about it as this horrible thing. And it's such a taboo topic, right? Just like BDSM is a taboo topic, and we need to talk about it more because there's such a feeling of isolation. And I think in a lot of women who feel like they're the only ones going through it, or they don't feel like they can talk about it to other people. So that's not true. We've got this, we've got all kinds of options, and there are other places to be, so to share and be part of the community. So, so with that, can you tell us how listeners can get a hold of you to get to know you a little bit more, and if they're happen to be interested in some business opportunities to work with you, where can they find you?
Absolutely. So my main website is danapharant.com, which is spelled Pharant. And the great thing is I am the only Dana Pharant in the world. So awesome. I am super, super easy to find everywhere, anywhere. But I would highly suggest get over to innerdominatrix.com and grab a copy of the book to get some tools.
Awesome.
Get started.
And those links will also be in the show notes. We'll make sure that we have them available for you to click. So again, Dana, thank you so much for being with us on the show. I appreciate you coming on and giving us a great story, great tips, and a great perspective on being in part of this menopausal journey.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Tracy. It's been a blast.
All right. You guys, will talk to you next week.